I have worked out how the Championship table will finish if every team maintains their current form between now and the end of the season. And let me just say, at the bottom of the table especially, things are going to be incredibly tight if things unfold like this. Now, when we're talking about current form, what I've gone ahead and done is I've gone back to the start of the calendar year, worked out each Championship team's points per game from that point up until now, and if they maintain that points per game between now and the end of the season, this is how many points they'll finish the campaign on. Now obviously this model doesn't take into consideration a few different things, whether that be fixture difficulty, players getting injured or immediate form, but I think taking each side's form from the start of 2024 up until now is a decent sample size which tells us generally how each team is performing right now. Once again, don't take this video all too seriously, it's just for a little bit of fun and to see how the Championship could potentially finish. Do get all your thoughts in the comments down below, but without any further ado, let's jump in. So going through each team in alphabetical order, starting out with Birmingham, and based on this points model, they would be relegated in 23rd place. From the start of the year up until this point, they've been averaging just 0.84 points per game. If that continues in their final 8 matches, they'll only finish the season with 46 points, which would see them relegated. Now, the hope from Birmingham is that they'll have a bit of an uplift in their upcoming games with Gary Rowett returning to the club. Safe pair of hands who certainly knows what it takes to get over the line for Championship survival, but the dreadful run of form right now cannot be ignored, and looking at those underlying numbers, yeah, Blues fans have to be getting a bit twitchy. Another team well in this relegation battle and not on a good run of form right now, but Blackburn would just about have enough to survive. Funnily enough, from January up until this point, they've actually averaged the same amount of points as Birmingham have, 0.84, but given Blackburn already have a few more points on the board, that would see them safe, finishing on 49 points, 3 points ahead of Birmingham, so it is going to be very tight, but they just about have enough to get over the line. Now, what's worth considering with Blackburn and what this data model doesn't take into consideration is that they have a tremendously tough run of fixtures coming up, so that's worth taking into consideration. But if every team maintains their form between now and the end of the season, Blackburn might just have enough to survive. In 15th place, it would be Bristol City, finishing with 54 points. Quite bizarre actually, the first 3 teams we've gone over in today's video are all currently averaging 0.84 points per game. Bristol City not been on a great run of form since the start of January, and it feels like their season is just sort of fading out right now. There's not much to play for at Ashton Gate, and it already feels like there's a eye looking forward to next season already. Prior to that game against Swansea, Cardiff had been on a really good run of form. From the start of January up until this point, they've been averaging 1.46 points per game. If they maintain that, they'll finish the campaign on 65 points, which at the start of the season, I'm sure every Cardiff fan would have taken. That sort of point total won't be enough to get you in and around the playoffs, but a solid finish of 11th, I think, would represent a solid season for Cardiff, all things considered. This is where things get tight around the top of the Championship though. Just missing out on the playoffs would be Coventry. They're currently averaging 1.91 points per game. If they maintain that, that would see them finishing the campaign with 74 points, which this season wouldn't be enough to get them over the line and into the top 6. You'll see later in the video how many points it is going to take to finish in the top 6, but based on this point model, they just fall short this time. Taking up another of the relegation spots, it's Huddersfield Town, finishing the campaign in 22nd place. They're currently averaging just over a point per game, and based on that, they'd be lined up to pick up 48 points this season. And once you see the full table, you'll see how agonisingly close it would be at the bottom end of the Championship. But even based on this and what you can see right now, Huddersfield would finish just 1 point behind Blackburn, despite averaging a higher points per game than Rovers right now. They'd finish below them as they've got less points on the board and would just go down with 48 points. Huddersfield fans, do you think you pick up more points than that between now and the end of the season in real life? let me know, because it's probably going to take around about that 50-point mark to guarantee survival. The race for the playoffs is very interesting. Hull City, another one of those sides who are well in the playoff race right now, despite being on one of the longest unbeaten runs in the Championship as of recording. They're only averaging 1.58 points per game from January 1st up until this point. The reason that Hull's points per game has touched such a battering in recent weeks is because they've been drawing so many matches, and come the end of the campaign, that could be the thing to cost them. Going off that data, Hull would finish the campaign with 72 points, which wouldn't be enough to get them over the line and into the top 6. They'd finish 2 points behind Coventry and a little bit off the pace in the top 6 race as well. So Hull definitely need to have an upturn in form in those remaining matches if they are going to get into the top 6 this season. The first of our automatic spots goes to Ipswich Town, averaging a massive 2.07 points per game. That would see them finishing the season with 98 points, which going off this model would be enough for automatic promotion. Now, the race for first and second in the Championship has been absolutely relentless all season, with really 4 outstanding sides. Ipswich themselves have been in great form recently, having won 7 of their last 8 matches, and if they're able to maintain that sort of form in their remaining games, they may just have enough to get over the line. When we talk about form in the Championship though, there's really only one side to discuss, and that's Leeds United, averaging a bonkers 2.84 points per game in 2024. The only game they've dropped points in this calendar year was against Huddersfield. That game finished level, and if they're able to maintain this ridiculous form between now and the end of the season, they'd finish with 105 points and would be just shy of a Championship points record, which would be some achievement for Daniel Farke's side, considering it was somewhat of a bit of a bumpy start, I think it's fair to say. They've got by far and away the best offensive record in the Championship from the start of January up until this point. They've got several match winners dotted throughout that squad, and dare I say it, a fairly favourable run of fixtures as well. So yeah, I mean, I wouldn't expect Leeds to finish on that high of a point total. I think there probably will be a slip somewhere in there in those remaining matches, but right now I think they are looking like a popular choice to win the league, and that form right there is the main reason why. All of this does mean that Leicester would be projected to just miss out on automatic promotion, which would be absolutely bonkers given the mammoth lead they led over 3rd place at the start of the calendar year. However, since that point there has been an obvious drop off in form, and that can be seen right there. They're only averaging 1.66 points per game at this point in time, which is considerably less than the likes of Leeds and Ipswich, who would both be projected to finish above the Foxes. Going off this points model, Leicester would finish the season with 97 points, which it's worth flagging up. In the vast majority of Championship seasons, that would be enough to get you over the line. It would be enough to win the league in a lot of Championship seasons, but with how high the threshold is this season, that would see them finishing in 3rd place, which would be absolutely gutting. In mid-table, we'd have Middlesbrough finishing in 10th place. They've picked things up in recent weeks. It was a bit of an inconsistent run they were on at the start of the year, but prior to this international break have gone 4 games unbeaten, averaging 1.38 points per game. That would see them finishing the campaign on 65 points, and because of their slightly superior goal difference to Cardiff, they'd finish just above them. In recent weeks, Millwall have put a decent amount of breathing space between themselves and the bottom 3, largely thanks to the uplifting form they've had since Neil Harris's arrival. In 2024, they're averaging just over 1 point per game. That would see them finishing the season on 52 points, which would be enough for survival, both in this model and in real life. So if Millwall carry on picking up the points as they have been doing of late, that would be good enough for a reasonably comfortable 16th placed finish, which I'm sure all the Millwall fans would take at this point. Going back to the race for the top 6, Norwich would have enough to secure that 6th place spot, and it's largely thanks to this unbelievable run of form they're currently on. Norwich are picking up points right now like a side going for automatic promotion. Since the start of January, they've been averaging 2.07 points per game. It's the same amount of points that Ipswich have picked up since the start of the year. It's largely thanks to their brilliant record at Carrow Road, and based on that model, they'd pick up 78 points and would have enough to hold off the likes of Coventry and Hull, who are looking like the probably biggest rivals right now to that top 6 place of theirs. Going down to 19th in the Championship, I know there are a lot of twitchy Plymouth fans right now. There's a bit of tension there between the fan base and Ian Foster. However, since the start of the calendar year, Plymouth have been averaging 1 point per game, and if they average that between now and the end of the season, they may just about have enough to survive, and we're talking survival by the skin of their teeth. They'd finished the campaign with 49 points, the same as Blackburn, but due to their current superior goal difference, would just finish above Rovers in that regard. Finishing in 9th place, we'd have my side Preston North End with a really respectable points return of 72 points. That wouldn't be enough to get us into the top 6 this season though, largely thanks to the relentless form that Norwich have been in recently. It could take as many as 78 points to finish in the top 6 this season, which is seems like a very high threshold. North End been picking up points at quite a consistent rate during this calendar year, averaging 1.75 points per game, but going off the stats, we probably have to up those levels even more in our remaining 9 or so matches. QPR fans, you can take some relief looking at this table. You'd finish in 17th place based on the current form book, averaging 1.46 points per game, which is like a comfortable mid-table side really. You'd be projected to finish the season with 52 points, which certainly isn't too shabby. All the doom and gloom that surrounded that club at the start of the season and how bad they were at times under Ainsworth, it's been pretty miraculous in how Cifuentes has completely changed largely that same group of players. No surprises whatsoever. Of course, it's Rotherham projected to finish at the bottom of the Championship. Since the start of the calendar year, they've been averaging a measly 0.23 points per game. Based on that, they would only pick up 2 more points between now and the end of the season, finishing the campaign on 22 points, and would therefore go down as the worst side in Championship history. I still have something in the back of my mind that says that Rotherham will get a shock win or two maybe between now and the end of the season, perhaps once that relegation is confirmed and we see the pressure sort of being off them a little bit. But yeah, I wouldn't completely discount them from causing an upset somewhere between now and the end of the season. Prior to the international break, Sheffield Wednesday had a couple of really tough matches, but generally speaking, their form has been very good since the start of the calendar year. Like QPR, they've also been averaging 1.46 points per game, and if they're to maintain that in their remaining 8 matches, they'd finish the campaign on 50 points, which should just about be enough to get them over the line. In this table prediction here, that would see Sheffield Wednesday leapfrogging a few sides and finishing in 18th in the Championship, which I'm sure all Sheffield Wednesday fans would snatch your hands off for right now. Southampton have had a few slips during this calendar year, but generally speaking, their form has been pretty good. They have been averaging 2 points per game from the start of January up until this point. It's also worth flagging up that they have a couple of games in hand on some of the teams around them as well. If they were to continue picking up points at their current rate, they'd finish the campaign on 93 points, which in a lot of seasons would be enough to get you into the top 2, but not this season. It would only be good enough for a 4th placed finish. Now, the point totals with a lot of the teams in and around the top end of the Championship will be significantly different to that in real life, because a lot of them still have to play each other and therefore they will be taking points off each other. But based on purely the form book, that's how the top 4 would line up come the end of the season. Stoke City fans will be relieved to know that you would survive by the skin of your teeth. Quite interesting actually. Plymouth, Blackburn and Stoke all projected to finish the season with 49 points based on the current form book. The way I've separated all the sides is by their goal difference in real life at this point in time, and going off that, Stoke may just about have enough to get over the line. They have picked up some big wins in recent weeks. I saw them come to Deepdale and put in a really quite decent away performance actually, but the margin for error at the bottom of the Championship is so small, because you can see right there how little there's going to be in the point totals, and one result against a fellow relegation rival can absolutely make all the difference come the end of the season. But they're currently averaging 1 point per game, which may just about be enough to get them over the line if there's no up 10 in form from either Huddersfield or Birmingham, that is. It's not been a great calendar year for Sunderland fans. I think they'll be happy to get this season over as quickly as possible really. They're averaging less than a point per game in this calendar year. They've got Jack Clark out until the end of the season, a few other key absences in recent weeks as well. All that has accumulated to quite a disappointing end to this season. This model would have them finishing on just 55 points, which would be considerably less than they finished last season with. Swansea have certainly picked things up in recent weeks though, and with a fairly reasonable run of fixtures between now and the end of the campaign, there's every chance that Swansea finish the season with more than 56 points, but since the turn of the year they've averaged 1.31 points per game, which should be enough to secure them into a comfortable mid-table sort of finish. Slap bang in the middle of the table, we've got Watford. They're averaging 1 point per game right now, projected to pick up 56 points based on that model. It's a very tricky run of fixtures that Watford have between now and the end of the campaign, and another one of those clubs in the middle of the table in limbo that don't have much to fight for right now. I think it will be a comfortable mid-table finish for them most likely. And then to go ahead and wrap things up, in 5th place it would be the Baggies. They're averaging 1.84 points per game from the start of Jan up until this point, and would have enough to secure that 5th place finish. They are looking pretty nailed on for that spot in real life right now, and I think it's most likely that they probably will finish in that position, gear themselves up for the playoffs, and then you never know. Carlos Corberán in knockout football, I'd fancy their chances to cause an upset in the playoffs. But guys, there you have it. That will now wrap it up for today's video. Thank you very much for watching. How realistic do you think that table is come the end of the season? Do let me know down below. But apart from that guys, thank you very much for watching. If you're going to enjoy, make sure to leave a like, and I'll see you all in the next one.